the concept called health psychology and what is engaged in, including a number of theories that relate health to psychology. This afternoon, we are going to explore health psychology and stress, and you will see the impact of stress on health. Emma, thank you for updating me about the status of events. Yes, that's the next slide. It is talking about learning objectives. I think in case the slide is not moving as expected, I mean the slides, Emma, you can update me via my WhatsApp and I adjust accordingly. So the learning objectives of this particular module: one, we will define health psychology and its main goals. Though it will be just more or less like a recap because this was done in the morning in the previous module. We will identify the biopsychosocial model and its implications. We will describe the role of stress and coping in health and illness. We will define stress and its sources. We will explain the physiological as well as psychological effects of stress. And we will have a description of the coping strategies for stress management. Just as a recap, in the morning we defined what health is, and we said it's not just mere absence of disease, but we look at the complete wellness of somebody, including the psychological wellness, mental and social. And then health psychology is understanding how the psychological, behavioral, and social factors influence illness and health care. These ones I'm going to run so fast because an elaborative explanation was given in the module we had in the morning. What is the importance of health psychology? It is at the intersection of biology, psychology, and social determinants of health. And it helps us to promote wellness among people, prevent illness, and improvement of outcomes related to health care. As health psychologists, we should recognize the interaction. You can even call it complex interaction, but let us look at the interaction between your mind, your body, environment, and how these ones influence your health, and the behaviors that affect your health as well. And these ones were also explored in the morning. We also looked at the biopsychological model, and as a matter of recap, this concept has two concepts: bio and psychological. and it adopts the biopsychosocial model. Biopsychosocial model, we can see that it has three concepts. It has bio, it has psycho, and it has social. And these factors are isolated as biological factors. I hope we're on the same page. Highlighted as listed there. We have psychological factors, and finally we have social factors. We also looked at the illness wellness continuum, and we also appreciated that this the state of where you lie along with the continuum is determined by a number of factors or circumstances. So you are either ill because of some reasons, or you are well because of some factors. And other people are in between there. Okay? So that is what we call the illness wellness continuum. We also explored the role of psychology in health, especially aspects like thoughts, emotions, and beliefs, and how they impact health behaviors as well as the coping strategies. But also, these ones have an implication on adherence to treatment. And I was emphasizing some treatments that will require adherence to be beneficial. Like if you are HIV positive and you want on antiretroviral therapy, these are issues that requires to invoke the discipline of psychology, so that to help the client cope with such problems. Two, psychology contributes to health promotion by understanding what influences behaviors of people and behaviors that are related to health. And it helps us in designing interventions, promote health habits. And in the morning, you looked at how some of these models and theories in psychology helps us to design interventions that are meant for desirable health habits like a healthy diet, exercising regularly, and etc. And people with chronic conditions, through the discipline of psychology, can be helped to address emotional issues, behavioral issues, improving health care, and also for them to cope with the treatment in terms of adhering strictly when they are taking their therapies or treatment. Additionally, psychology enhances the patient-provider relationship, good or better health outcomes, because as psychologists, we always call upon you to be effective in communication, to demonstrate empathy, and empathy means putting yourself in your client's shoes, and to be so instrumental in sharing decisions or decision making. And it is also this area of psychology that helps us to try and understand the quality of services we give to our clientele, and therefore being able to assess patient satisfaction when it comes to service provision. We in today's lecture or in afternoon's lecture, we will see that psychology has tools, it has strategies for coping with stress, because ideally this afternoon's topic is stress and adversity, especially those who lose their relatives. And you realize that stress or adversity has an impact on physical health or mental health or both, just as we will discuss ahead of us, how stress can really influence your health and moreover substantially impact your health. It also promotes resilience. You become hardcore and adapt well to stress through techniques that help in the reduction of stress. And we look at techniques that are very important in reducing stress. The discipline also recognizes the importance of social support in health and well-being. And here we note also challenge you to reflect on what your peers play when you have stress, when you have depression, when you have psychosocial issues. And therefore, underscoring the role of relationships, social networks, your own community. You know, when you lose relatives, you know what the community does when you have such issues, and the promoting resilience. Additionally, psychology addresses mental health issues, hence promoting psychological well-being and reducing stigma associated with mental illnesses. It also helps us to appreciate or understand the factors why some people initiate some behaviors. Like, have you ever wondered why someone may decide to start smoking, or someone may decide to use a condom? These factors of initiating a behavior or even sustaining it, in this case, you are calling it maintenance, or even changing that very behavior, can be well understood or well explored using the field of psychology. And it is very, very important when it comes to integrating health care, especially if you are engaging a number of players like medical professionals, village health workers, the community, and etc. That enables us to get a holistic kind of care for the purpose of having improved health outcomes. After having a recap of what was done in the morning, as I've said, the content I've just explained is explained in details in the module we had in the morning. Let us look at the major topic of today's presentation, and that is none other than stress. In this topic, or in today's session, we will define what stress is and what causes stress. Two, we will explain how stress affects our health in terms of physiological response as well as psychological. Three, we will describe the coping strategies for stress. Which strategies do we have that can help us cope with stress? And four, we will evaluate the role of social support in stress management. And when we talk about social support, I hope you know the aspects entailed within that concept of social support. Right away, one of the objectives of our topic called stress was to define what stress is. Of course, when you try to visit scholars, you will find different definitions for whatever concept you are seeking to get information about. So, particularly in today's lecture, we are defining stress as a natural response to challenging or demanding situations. Another scholar was defining stress as a response to danger. And therefore, if there is no danger, there is no stress. And below, we can also see another definition written by Lazarus, trying to state that stress is a circumstance in which transactions lead a person to perceive discrepancy. So, what is that stress? According to Lazarus, he's saying that you start seeing a difference between the physical demands or psychological demands, your mind, and what you have around. And what you have around, they may be your inner body, that is biological, your mind, psychological, or social systems, and social systems are quite broad. So once you start seeing a discrepancy between those two, physical or psychological demands, and then the resources to meet those demands, according to Lazarus, is saying you'll be in a state called stress, or that circumstances refer to him as stress. To what extent is his definition true is a subject of debate by you, the upcoming scholars. But to me, to some extent, I agree with Lazarus on his definition about stress. Other scholars, especially those from the contemporary society, the definition of stress is viewed in terms of the external stressors, that is like worker problems, and then the response to the stressors, that is like a feeling of tension. So some scholars have identified the cause of stressors, but also response to stressors. We have already noted that stress can impact our physical and mental well-being as it is influenced by various factors. I happen to be one of the people who enjoy watching the wild videos, but at times you can see an antelope standing and maybe it is scared uh, by an enemy or a prey, a predator. So the way you see it responding in terms of its body and reaction is what tells us to reflect about how we can get into stress and how the body may react and how the body may react. So these things or a sequence of events that happen between the time a stressor gets into contact with its subject and how you respond at times their internal systems that are triggered to produce action or reaction. Stressors are conditions that are more likely to produce stress. than others. And our scholars have specifically defined the stressor as an event or situation that causes stress. So anything that can cause stress can be simply referred to as a stressor. And scholars have looked at a number of stressors, especially in human beings. Stressors can be classified as stressors from the physical environment, like the bright light, noise, discomfort due to excessive heat, weather discomfort due to excessive cold, and all those can be referred to as stressors triggered by the physical environment. Other forms of stress are social or relational stress, which may be like a conflict with others, loneliness, and lack of social support. You can also look at financial stressors like taxes, unpaid bills, and extra. Organizational stressors like the need to respond to deadlines, pressure to pass exams that you are about to sit for. Other forms of stress are life events like death of loved ones, losing a job, illness, uh, marriage, winning lottery, and etc. The other form of stressors is lifestyle choices like not having enough sleep, too much caffeine, or taking a lot of alcohol. Another class of stressors established by scholars are called physiological stressors, such as poor health, physical illness, pregnancy, and injury, and etc. So those are a number of stressors I can refer to. Additionally, stress involves biochemical, physiological, behavioral, and psychological changes ahead of us. And just as I've just mentioned, you will see that when uh, a source of stress sets into motion, the body or the person who gets that stress will react. So there are a number of changes like hormones. We shall see that there are hormones that are produced in response, and you have ever heard the people who are always threatened, saying that the adrenaline has gone high. These are some of the biochemical processes, production of hormones to respond to threat, just as we have already talked about. Researchers have differentiated between harmful or damaging stress and positive or beneficial stress, referring to harmful stress as distress, while they have referred to positive or beneficial stress as eustress. Another form of stress that other two categories of stress that have been identified by scholars are acute stress versus chronic stress. Acute is an English word meaning something that is so rapid, rapid, something that is so immediate. So, like you can get into acute stress because of panic for exams. You can get into acute stress because you are invited to defend your work, that is public speaking, on a daily basis. Like some of you know, times will have work conditions that may trigger any stress. which may be there on a daily basis because you always go to work every day. If you are poor, it may have issues to do with triggering stress. So scholars have differentiated between this stress and eustress, where they have also identified either acute stress or chronic stress, with each having several or different implications for health. Effects of stress and allostatic load. Allostatic load is the wear and tear of the body which accumulates as an individual is exposed to repeated or chronic stress. Basically, if I'm talk about allostatic stress, I'll refer to a scholar called Peter A. Levin. Peter A. Levin studied animals in the wild. These animals face a variety of stressors, including stressors that threaten their life on a daily basis. He found that after drawing on heightened amounts of energy to escape, for example, I was giving an antelope or overcome a dangerous situation, an animal expends this excessive energy. After escaping, the animal spends this excessive energy either by shaking. I hope some of you who keep, like for me, I always keep threatening dogs, but they respond when they run. So they respond by either shaking, barking, or running. Okay. Peter goes ahead to mention that, however, humans don't have a built-in system for releasing trauma and stress. Hence, over time, chronic stress erodes our resilience and adds to the body's allostatic load. So that is what I want to say about the concept of allostatic load as an outcome of stress on humans. That whereas animals have inbuilt mechanisms of oversetting stress, stress in humans at times can accumulate a concept referred to as allostatic load. And when it accumulates, it wears the body down and it has several implications. For health, compromised, and the immune system is compromised. call it transactional model. And these two scholars, Lazarus and Launia, describe stress as a transaction or an interaction between the people and the environment. To them, stress is determined by a person's appraise of the event, there's economic financial life events and the physical source of stress. So the way you become vulnerable to stress is about how you those stressful moments or issues and what you have to cope with them. According to those two scholars, it is what determines your stress. Furthermore, they go ahead and mention that good person environment fit. If the person is fitting well in the environment, there will be no stress. However, they also go ahead to assert that if the fit is poor, if the person is not fitting well in the environment, then the higher the what? The stress. Some of you have ever been visitors in an area, just that example, you just feel uncomfortable. And those are issues that these scholars are trying to explain. Fitting in the environment or poor fit in the environment. Apart from Lazarus and colleagues' explanation about stress, we also have explanation about stress uh, by other scholars who are explaining stress in terms of hormones and the function of the nervous system. According to them, the sympathetic adromedullary, the so-called SAM axis, this is some section of the nervous system, is activated to a stressful event. This explanation is what I was giving in an example of one antelope that is threatened by a predator. So that system in the body is triggered to respond to a threat. Okay, I wish I downloaded one video of an antelope threatened by an enemy or by a predator. You will see the body reacting. That reaction of the body is not mechanical. It is something that is being triggered by hormones, and this part of the nervous system that is responsible for that kind of reaction is being referred to as the sympathetic adrenergic or abbreviated as SAM axis. So what this part of the nervous system does, it releases a group of hormones, and those group of hormones are in the group or in the class of the hormones called catecholamines. Catecholamines and catecholamines, we have two hormones. I've already talked about one, a hormone that responds to fear called the adrenaline, and the other second hormone is no adrenaline. And this causes change in blood pressure, in blood pressure, heart rate, and the pupil dilation. One thing we should note that if this part of the nervous system is triggered into action, it releases these two types of hormones. And these hormones are collectively called catecholamines. So when it is pain or when these ones are done, the body is prepared either to fight or to run away or to freeze. At times, muscles will become tense, and therefore, the blood, the rate at which the heart function changes. So that is at a physiological level. The effect of stress, what happens when your body is threatened, it doesn't behave normally. It responds, and part of the response is a chemical reaction. We are referring to as biochemical reaction. And we are noting that these two hormones in the group of catecholamines, they affect the functions of the immune system and other body. So at a physiological level, inside the physiological, we are referring to inside the how the body functions. In terms of functions of the organs, the hormones are being triggered, and these hormones are not effective free. They have an effect on the immune system, how it is going to function, and they also have an effect on other body tissues as well. So now you're appreciating if there are issues of stress in any environment, let it be working environment or home. You are not only affecting the person psychologically, but you're also affecting the physiological functioning of other body organs and those that are directly responsible for stress management. So, stress, I was giving an example of an antelope. Stress triggers changes in the hypothalamic pituitary adrenocortical system. The whole nervous system has, the whole endocrine system. The whole endocrine system has a number of parts like the hypothalamic gland and the pituitary and the adrenocortical system. These are parts of the endocrine system located in the brain. So they are triggered into action. And when they are triggered into action, they will produce hormones, and these hormones, they include the corticosteroids and the cortisols. And these ones are the reason when you study the way hormones are produced in the body, you realize that no single hormone is produced without purpose. So hormones are produced for some purpose, and especially these hormones that are triggered by stressors, as I've said, will call the body into action. Will call the body into action. They will call the body to respond to the threat. They will call the body to respond to the threat. And when these hormones that respond to threats are brought, they are not consequence free. They affect the storage of carbohydrates. They are responsible for inflammation. Inflammation is the abnormal lining in the body, and they also affect other physiological processes, including digestion. So, according to this theory by Hans Sisle, it is this general mechanism through the hypothalamic pituitary adrenocortical system that the body responds to the threat of this problem called stress. Of this problem called stress. We looked at some concepts related to stress, like the person environment fit, a theory that was written by Lazarus and a colleague. He emphasized about two approaches: one, the stressors, and two, the mechanisms to manage the stress. According to Lazarus, is identifying two forms of appraisal. One is primary and the other is secondary. And according to Lazarus and colleague, primary appraisal assess the event is a harm, threat, or challenge. According to these scientists, when you get a stressor, you have that component of body that is able to determine the harmfulness of the event or the stressor. Okay. Still, these scholars go ahead to explain secondary appraisers that are assessed by your body, and these are the ability to come up or to cope with the threat we are calling stress. Other scholars also looked at how the body responds to stress, and among them we have Walter Cannon. They looked at the way animals were responding to stress, and they realized there were two issues. Either the person is triggered into action to fight, or the person organism is frightened. So we are calling that fight or flight response. And because of that reaction, the body is mobilized to attack the threat or flee. And this involves triggering the sympathetic nervous system. There is that part of the nervous system to release hormones. The hormones have looked at adrenaline and noradrenaline and noradrenaline. Another scholar that has adaptation syndrome, and in his study, he exposed the rats to stressors and he had to observe the way they were reacting physiologically. Physiologically is about checking the blood pressure and so many other functions of the body organs, not physical. It's talking about observing them physiologically. So when he observed his rats in the experiment, Hannes realized that adaptation had three phases. They had the first phase called alarm, the second phase was resistance, and the third phase was exhaustion. And from his theory, he realized that prolonged exposure to stress can lead to diseases of adaptation. When you overexpose yourself to stress, at times you may fail to adapt, and therefore you become vulnerable. Other scholars that try to explore the subject of stress attend and befriend, and these ones emphasized social affiliation and nurturant behavior in response to stress. They suggested that women in particular respond to stress by seeking social support and protecting offspring. And they also realized that one of the hormones that was responsible for promoting affiliative behaviors and nurturing were oxytocin in their research or study. After looking at scholars that try to study how organisms and individuals respond to stress, let us look at the impacts of stress. One, I've already talked about how the body reacts when it gets a threat, and we have seen what happens internally. What are the reactions? And I've already mentioned that these reactions are not consequence free. Stressor is in a number of ways. One, stress can impact the cardiovascular system. I hope people are aware that when we talk about cardio, we are referring to the heart, leading to increased blood pressure, some diseases of the heart like atherosclerosis and other cardiovascular diseases. So we have already observed that stress triggers the change in the heartbeat, and therefore it may, if you overexpose yourself to stressors quite often, then the chances are high that you may worsen the blood pressure of your heart. You may worsen the functioning of your heart, causing problems of that kind. We have also established that the system responsible for releasing hormones responsible for coordinating so many body processes, the so-called endocrine system, responds by releasing stress relieving hormones. Stress relieving hormones. But these hormones can contribute to heart problems, they can contribute to metabolic syndrome, and they can affect the immune system by resulting into its deregulation. When the immune system is affected by the stressors, its ability to defend against infections and diseases like cancer is also compromised. We are seeing that hormones that are triggered by stress like cortisol can affect the immune function, can lead to cardiovascular issues, and it can also lead to inflammation. Inflammation comes from the word inflamed, and these may be responsible for development of illnesses. We can also realize that when you expose to chronic stress, chronic meaning having stress all the time, you may have a problem with the healing of your wounds. Like I have ulcers, but my medical personnel has told me that maybe at times I don't have enough rest and I'm always stressed, which is true, and maybe it is resulting into failure of healing of such wounds. Stress is also associated with psychophysiological disorders. For example, stress can affect the digestive system, leading to irritable bowel syndrome or gastritis. These are issues that may be triggered by stress. The digestive system may fail to work well. It can also worsen chronic conditions like asthma. As we can see, stress can change your heartbeat, the breathing rate will change, and people who have problems with breathing or with the lungs will be affected negatively. Stress is also associated with headaches. Uh, Stress can also be associated with anxiety disorders, depression, and the autoimmune diseases. And the autoimmune diseases. Other psychophysiological disorders associated with stress are related with the functioning of the heart, as we have mentioned, like hypertension, coronary heart disease, and other issues. And it becomes worse if it finds that there are other competing conditions that cause similar. Like if you have high cholesterol, you are smoking, so the situation is even made more complicated with stress. So our researchers have also established that acculturation or adapting to new culture may increase blood pressure due to various stress associated with that process of coping with new culture. We note that stress may not necessarily cause the problems we are talking about, for example, cancer, but it may influence the worsening, or it may even worsen those health conditions like cancer, since it compromises the immune system, promoting unhealthy behaviors and impacting on physiological processes involved in progression of such health conditions. What are the psychosocial modifiers of stress? Social support plays a crucial role in providing protective factors against the adverse effects of stress. For example, a strong support system of friends, when you have friendship that is supportive, when you have a family that is supportive, when you have a community that is supportive. These are very important in providing emotional or even information or instrumental in during when you have adversity or during challenging times of challenges. This can support the effectiveness of therapy and promote positive cognitive processes. Other psychosocial modifiers of stress, those psychosocial issues that may offset stress, are like feeling a sense of personal control over stressful situations. And this may involve recognizing aspects of the situation within your own control and taking proactive steps to manage them. So at times you may realize something that always stresses you, and then you take steps to either minimize it or avert, so that at times you avoid unnecessary stress. Other psychosocial modifiers of stress are personality traits. You read about personality traits in details, but in this particular case, we are singling out a type of personality called type A behavior. According to scholars, people with type A behavior are associated with a high level of achievement. I don't know whether you have such people who feel that they should score so high, they should compete everything, and they're impatient. So that character of behavior also is a triggering factor for stress. So that is type A behavior. However, you realize that there is the other type of behavior which is type B. These have low stress, they are even tempered, and therefore they have like more or less like a protective factor. So as people in the field, you need to understand somebody's personality so that you help them come up with coping strategies according to their personalities. After discussing stress, then how do we cope with stress? Concept coping. Coping refers to individual strategies and efforts to manage stress. And adapt to challenging strategy. You will be able to have better. So coping strategies can be problem focused coping. Like if you have a financial problem, then you get man and solve it. So problem focused coping, you cope by addressing the problem. Or it can be emotion focused coping. You manage emotional responses to stress. For example, you seek for social support, engaging in relaxation techniques, practicing mindfulness, Mindfulness, and let us look at relaxation techniques. These are some of the techniques employed by physiotherapists. And the technique is like you get a quiet place where you can be like for 10 to 15 minutes, and then focus on creating tension in a group of muscles, then later relax. Like you can concentrate on the triceps and biceps, then you create tension, then relax them. We go, you get your biceps and triceps, then you make them tense, then you relax them. Okay? When you finish, you go to the muscles of the chest, then you start creating, you make them tense. Okay, let us make them tense. I hope you are following. Then relax slowly. We on the muscles of the chest, let us make them tense. As we are breathing slowly, then we relax them. We can go to the muscles of the